Hello everyone, welcome to this channel. We are studying class 10 physics. We have successfully completed two chapters of physics and now let us start one more chapter which is chapter number 14, sources of energy. Now friends, this is a chapter of environmental science but as it is related to physics. So let us start with this chapter and in a very short span of time and videos we will be successfully completing this chapter. Now, we all have learned about energy in lower standards. What is energy? Energy is the ability, the capacity, the capability of doing work. Okay. But in this chapter, we will not deal with the energy factor. We will deal with the title that is the sources of energy. Right? Sources means from those things where energy comes from, right? And it is very important to think that why we are using energy. To get energy we need to find source, right? But why do we get energy? We get energy, we use energy, we convert the energy to make things possible, to do our simple and complex works. Right. Now, we also studied the law of conservation of energy. In ninth standard, chapter 11, we studied the law of conservation of energy. What does it say? It says that energy can neither be created nor be destroyed, but it can be transformed into one form to another. Right? So why do we need this transformation to do our work? Okay, you see, if you have a tube light in your room, what type of conversation is happening? What type of transformation is happening? Electricity is getting converted into light energy, right? You see, fan, right? Electricity is getting converted into mechanical energy. So these transformations help us to do our work and to live in a comfortable manner, right? So when we use energy in its usable form, we convert the form of energy and get our work done, right? But mostly we cannot reverse the change involved in this process. So we cannot get back the original usable form, right? So that is why we have to think about the transformation and the utility of energy, because once we are using it, it is totally unavailable. Mostly it happens like that. Now, due to this, the non-reversal, it becomes very important to think about the energy shortage, right? And energy shortage is also called as energy crisis. Okay. Now, before we go into detail, we will learn that what characteristics we need in a good source of energy, because in this planet there are many types of energy sources, right? Some may be utilized in some specific work, some may be utilized in many kind of works, but let us see that what characteristics are required if we want to have a source of energy. So first is it should be able to do large amount of work, right? So if you are selecting, it is related to the fifth point. You can see high calorific value. If we are selecting a good source of energy, we must utilize in a very great amount of work. It should be easily accessible, right? Easily accessible, we can get it whenever we want easily. It should be easily stored and transported. You see, petroleum in all the petrol pumps you may find oil tankers, because from the oil wells it is coming and being stored in the tanks, and then we are using it, we are buying it in our vehicles. It should be economical. The main thing, the price, the price should not be cheap. It is not written that it should be cheap, it must be economical. Economical means it must be affordable, right? It must neither be cheap nor be very high costing, right? So it must be affordable, economical. Next is high calorific value per kilogram. If we are burning the source, the source of energy, it must give high amount of heat, right? So that heat is converted into work. Next, very important, it must have moderate ignition temperature. Now, what is ignition temperature? It is the minimum temperature at which the substance, the fuel, burns, right? So, it must have moderate, neither very low, neither very high. What will happen if the ignition temperature is very low? What will happen? The the fuel will burn randomly, spontaneously, right? So that may create a problem. Same way, if the ignition temperature is very high, it will take a lot of time and energy to burn it. So it must have moderate ignition temperature. Next, very important for these times, the fuel, the source of energy must be eco-friendly, environment friendly. And what do you mean by environment friendly? It must create least pollution. There is no fuel in this world or there is no source of energy in this world which will create no pollution, 0%, right? So every fuel must create or is creating some kind of pollution, but we will select a source of energy which will create least amount of pollution and pollutants, so that it is environment friendly. And last one is related to this topic only, leaves minimum residue. So we need not to worry about the disposal of all the byproducts. It must be used perfectly maximum and leaving the minimum residue. Clear? So these are the characteristics of good source of energy. This question can be asked in 2 marks, most important for 2 marks question. State few characteristics of good source of energy. So here we have discussed many characteristics. Least in 2 marks you may write any 4. Okay. Moving on to the next topic. Now friends, let us try to classify the sources of energy. Right. Now in the previous classification there were two types of sources, conventional sources and non-conventional sources. Now, those energy sources which have been in use since long time, since earlier times we are using, right? So, those sources are called or is called conventional source of energy, right? And those which are latest, which are advanced, they are non-conventional source of energy. Now, if you recall the further classifications which you have already learned in lower standard, let me tell you, they are renewable and non-renewable sources, right? So just remember like this, conventional sources of energy are non-renewable source of energy. Non-renewable means one time if we use, we cannot use those sources of energy again. So that means that if we are suppose take an example of coal, if we are utilizing coal to get energy, we cannot get that original source back. Okay, same with petroleum, same with natural gas, right? So these are few sources of energy which can be utilized for getting the work done only one time. So that is why they are said that they cannot be renewed, reused. Okay, so they are non-renewable and they are nothing but conventional, right? And the opposite, those which can be renewed, like you say, solar energy. Solar energy, the source is unlimited. Once we utilize, again we can use wind energy, right? Hydro energy. So these are few energy sources which can be reused after we utilize it for one time, right? So they are renewable. So the previous classification that you know is renewable, non-renewable. Now this classification will be conventional, non-conventional. So in this video we will discuss about conventional source of energy. Now let us discuss about conventional source of energy. Right? The sources of energy which have been used in since a very long time are called conventional source of energy. Right? So you can see few examples: coal, petroleum, natural gas, wind energy, nuclear energy, etc. Now the main thing is when we talk about conventional source of energy, fossil fuels are the most utilized conventional source of energy, right? Fossil fuels. Now I hope you know what are fossil fuels. First of all, what are fossils, right? So you know how fossil fuels are formed by fossils. Fossils are those dead remains of either animals, living beings, or plants, which are buried under the surface of earth, and within a span of million years ago, within a span of million years, they, due to high pressure and temperature, they get converted into fuels, right? Originally they are plants and animals, but due to the pressure and high temperature inside the earth, they are converted into fuel, right? So then we will discuss what are coal and petroleum. So now when we talk about fossil fuels, if the plants get buried under the surface of earth, which means plants, we are talking about living beings present on the surface of earth, right? The terrestrial things. So if plants got buried and due to high temperature pressure they get converted into fuel, they converted into coal, right? But within the ocean, if the living animals, the aquatic animals, if they are buried under the seabed and due to high temperature and pressure, they get converted into fuel. They are known as petroleum. Okay, so if they are plants on land, they are converted into coal. But if the sea animal, the aquatic animals, they are converted into the fuels, they are known as petroleum. Clear? And both these coal and petroleum, they took millions of years to form, right? So it is a very slow process becoming fossil, from fossil to fuel. Okay. Now coal is the highest used energy source in India. Earlier, you see, industrial revolution was possible due to these things. Coal. We made machines, we made gadgets running on the steam engine. If you see, that was running on coal. You imagine the earlier times train, right? So if you see the engine, that would produce lots of smoke. Why that was? Because they were using coal. So coal was burning, and that energy was used for running the train, making coal a very preferable fuel for the cooking purpose. That was also used in cooking purpose. But now you see LPG now became popular, but originally in villages, right now also in villages we use coal. So nowadays coal is mainly used in industries. There are many types of coals. You see peat, lignite, anthracite, right? Bituminous. So those grading of coal are done according to their quality, and according to the quality they are utilized in various different uses. Okay. In thermal power plant right now also coal is used in huge amount. Clear? Now talking about petroleum. Petroleum was also formed millions of years ago, right? The aquatic animals got buried under the ocean surface due to high temperature and pressure. They were converted into petroleum in due course of time, right? Now, if we take aside coal, petroleum is one of the major source of energy which are being used today, right? Petroleum products, you see, due to fractional distillation, we are able to convert petroleum into many different products, right? Petrol, diesel, coal gas, coal tar, many different products can be separated, and they are used in automobile fuels, also in the industries, right? And when we dig the wells, when we bore into the ocean bed, we get natural gas first before petroleum. And previously there was no use of natural gas, we were burning in the chimneys. But right now natural gas which comes from oil wells is also a major source of energy. Clear? So right now, if we say our 70% of the energy demands are being fulfilled by fossil fuels only. Now, even though we are using fossil fuels so much, even right now we are using or dependent on fossil fuels so much, we have plenty of disadvantages as well. You see, burning fossil fuels, they release harmful gases, smokes. Those gases are nothing but oxides of carbon, nitrogen, sulfur, right? They are all acidic in nature. So they, first of all, they cause air pollution, and then if they mix with the rain water, they make acids. So we call that rain as acid rain. Also, in huge amount, these specific kind of gases can create greenhouse effect and may lead to global warming as well, right? So we must check that minimum amount of fossil fuels are burned so that we can save our air from being harmful, right? So you see, if even if we can increase the efficiency of the processes involved in utilizing fossil fuels, we can save these all these acid rain, air pollution, and greenhouse effect. You see, if suppose we are taking thermal power plant, so in thermal power plant the efficiency is only 33%, right? That means to say, if we use 100 kilogram of coal, only 33 kilogram of coal is really utilized in producing energy. So rest all are wasted. So if we can increase the efficiency, then also we can get more energy with less fuel, right? So we have to think upon these things. Lastly, let us finish it with discussing about non-renewable and renewable. Non-renewable source of energy takes millions of years for the formation, right? Like fossil fuels, since they cannot be replenished in near future. So that is why they cannot be utilized by us again, right? At least not in our lifetime. So that is why they are known as non-renewable. And what are renewable? They can be replenished quickly. We are having unlimited amount of these energy sources, right? So they are renewable, renewed. Okay, tidal energy, wind energy, solar energy are those example of renewable energy. So in this video, we have started with the basics of sources of energy. We discussed about characteristics of ideal source of energy. Also, we discussed the classification, conventional, non-conventional, renewable, non-renewable. Right? So I hope the points are clear. If you have any doubt, rewatch the video and ask the doubts in comment section. That's all for today.